The Galactic Empire had finally captured him. Captain Ethan Kane, a former Marine from Earth, was escorted through the metallic corridors of the prison planet Tarvos. Cold, gray walls seemed to stretch endlessly, illuminated by the harsh, sterile glow of overhead lights. Alien guards flanked him, towering figures clad in black armor, their language a guttural mix of growls and clicks. The cuffs binding Ethan's wrists emitted a faint hum, a constant reminder of their suppressive energy field, making even the slightest movement a chore. Ethan kept his head high, his eyes scanning everything. He noted the placement of cameras, the rhythm of the patrols, and the faint vibration beneath his feet indicating the power flow beneath the structure. They thought him broken, another trophy for their conquest of humanity. But Ethan had no intention of staying here long. The guards shoved him into a cell, a small, claustrophobic chamber with walls that pulsed faintly with energy. A single cot jutted out from the wall, and the air carried a metallic tang that burned the back of his throat. The door sealed shut with a hiss, and for the first time in hours, the silence pressed down on him like a weight. He sat on the cot, his mind racing. Ethan wasn't one to panic. His military training had honed him to face impossible odds, and this was no different. He thought about Earth, the ruins of its once thriving cities now under the Empire's boot. The thought fueled his resolve. If he could escape, if he could find a way back, he might be able to strike a blow against them, no matter how small. Hours turned to days. The prison routine was predictable. Nutrient paste slid through a slot in the door, guards marching in perfect synchronization outside, and the occasional sound of screams echoing down the hall. It was a place designed to crush the spirit, to make inmates forget the taste of freedom. Yet, Ethan noticed things. The guards' movements, the drone patrols, even the energy field hums, they all followed patterns. Patterns could be exploited. One day, during the brief exercise period allowed in the communal yard, Ethan struck up a conversation with a Zulith engineer, a wiry alien with translucent skin and sharp, twitching appendages. The Zulith whispered about the prison's design flaws the guards arrogantly believed no one could exploit. Ethan listened carefully, filing away every detail. The engineer seemed surprised by his focus. "You humans," the Zulith muttered, "you're different. Most here lose hope. But you," it trailed off, shaking its head. Ethan smirked. "We don't give up easily." In those early moments, Ethan began piecing together his plan. He observed the desperation in the eyes of other prisoners, the quiet submission. But beneath that, he saw a spark. The guards didn't see it, but Ethan did. They had underestimated him, just as they had underestimated humanity. That was their first mistake, and it would be their last. Ethan began working quietly, biding his time while observing everything around him. He kept his head down during the rigid routines, but his mind was constantly in motion. It didn't take long to identify a handful of individuals who might be useful. His first recruit was the Zulith engineer. They struck up more conversations in the yard, Ethan careful to avoid drawing attention. The Zulith, who introduced itself as Tarlik, revealed that it had once worked on systems similar to those used in the prison. It knew how the energy grid functioned, and, more importantly, how it could be disrupted. "You're saying we could overload the core?" Ethan asked, keeping his voice low. "Not easily," Tarlik replied, its appendages twitching nervously. "It's a delicate balance. Too much power in one section, and the whole grid could cascade into failure. But that would draw attention." Ethan nodded, already forming contingencies in his mind. "Let me worry about the attention." Next came the Valoran thief, an agile creature with smooth, dark skin and eyes that glinted like polished obsidian. Valorans were known for their cunning and precision, and this one, named Kryn, was no exception. Ethan caught Kryn silently slipping a stolen nutrient ration from a guard's pouch and decided then that it would be a valuable ally. It took some convincing. Valorans didn't trust easily, but Ethan's calm confidence won Kryn over. Finally, there was Jorik, a Etherian brute who looked more like a small mountain than a sentient being. Jorik had a reputation for being unpredictable and violent, but Ethan saw beyond that. He approached Jorik after observing him silently endure abuse from the guards, taking their blows without a sound. When Ethan suggested an escape plan, Jorik only grunted at first, but his eventual agreement came with a sharp glint of determination. With the team assembled, Ethan began outlining the plan. Tarlik provided schematics for the prison's energy grid, pointing out weak points in the system. Kryn scouted access points, slipping past guards with an almost supernatural ease. Jorek would be the muscle, handling any physical obstacles in their path. Ethan's role was clear: leader, strategist, and the glue holding them all together. He knew the prison was designed to suppress individuality, to grind inmates into submission. That's why the others had never tried to escape. They had given up. But now, Ethan's relentless determination began to rub off on them. "It won't be easy," Ethan admitted during a whispered meeting. "They'll come at us with everything they have. But if we work together, we have a chance." Kryn's sharp eyes narrowed. "Why do you care? Why risk yourself for us?" "Because no one else will," Ethan replied simply. As the team began to execute small tests of their plan, they hit their first setback. A failed attempt to reroute power to a secure door resulted in an immediate lockdown. The guards doubled their patrols, and Tarlik's nervousness grew. "They're watching us now," Tarlik hissed. "Let them," Ethan said. "We'll adapt. That's what humans do best." It wasn't arrogance, it was truth. The plan was set in motion during a rare maintenance cycle, a brief window when the prison systems operated at reduced capacity. Ethan's team moved with precision, each member knowing their role. The first step was Kryn bypassing the perimeter alarms. The Valoran slipped through the shadows, using tools scavenged over weeks to manipulate the controls. Ethan monitored from a distance, communicating through a crude but effective relay device that Tarlik had constructed. "Alarms are offline," Kryn whispered. "Good. Move to the next point," Ethan replied. Jorek, meanwhile, stood ready near the central corridor. His task was simple: create a diversion. When a pair of guards approached, he let out a guttural roar and charged them head-on. The guards barely had time to react before Jorek's massive frame collided with them, sending one flying into a wall. The commotion drew more guards, exactly as planned. "Jorek's got their attention," Ethan said. "Tarlik, you're up." Tarlik's hands moved swiftly over a console near the energy grid. It murmured alien phrases to itself, its translucent skin glowing faintly under the stress. The task wasn't just technical, it was dangerous. Overloading the grid required precise calibration, and any misstep could trigger an immediate system lockdown or worse, vaporize Tarlik on the spot. "I need more time," Tarlik said, its voice strained. "We don't have more time," Ethan replied. Guards began to swarm the area, their movements frantic as they tried to contain Jorek's rampage. Kryn joined in, darting between them and disabling their weapons with surgical precision. Ethan, staying in the shadows, took out a guard with a calculated strike, grabbing their energy rifle and tossing it to Jorek. As the chaos unfolded, Tarlik finally shouted, "It's done! The grid is destabilizing." The prison's lights flickered, and the steady hum of its systems became erratic. Alarms blared, signaling an emergency shutdown. The automated AI drones, dependent on the grid, froze in place. "Move. Now," Ethan ordered. The team sprinted toward the escape pods, weaving through the confusion. Guards who tried to stop them were either outmaneuvered by Kryn or overpowered by Jorek. Ethan stayed in the rear, covering their escape with precision fire from the stolen rifle. As they reached the escape bay, their path was blocked by a warden, a towering insectoid alien with razor-sharp limbs and an aura of menace. It regarded them with cold detachment. "Impressive," it said, its voice like grinding metal. "But futile." Ethan stepped forward. "Futility isn't in our vocabulary." The warden lunged, but Ethan anticipated the move. Using the rifle, he fired a concentrated blast at a nearby conduit, causing an explosion that engulfed the warden in smoke and debris. "Go!" Ethan shouted. They boarded the escape pod, Tarlik initiating the launch sequence. Behind them, the prison descended into chaos, systems failing as the energy grid collapsed entirely. The pod shot into space just as a massive surge consumed the facility, ripping it apart in a cascade of light. For a brief moment, silence returned. Then they were free. The escape pod drifted through the void, its thrusters firing intermittently as Tarlik navigated them away from the collapsing prison. Ethan leaned against the interior wall, catching his breath. The others were silent, each processing what had just occurred. Through the small viewport, the prison glowed faintly in the distance, its once imposing structure now riddled with violent energy surges. "Is it going to blow?" Jorik asked, his deep voice breaking the silence. Tarlik shook its head. No. Worse. The overload is destabilizing the entire structure's dimensional anchor. It won't just explode, it'll cease to exist. As if on cue, the prison's outline began to shimmer, the space around it warping unnaturally. A moment later, it vanished entirely, leaving nothing behind but the faint ripple of distorted light. The Galactic Empire's most secure facility, an unbreachable fortress, had been erased from existence. Ethan exhaled slowly, his mind already turning to what came next. They'll be looking for us, he said. And when they find out what we've done, they won't stop. Let them come, Jorik rumbled, flexing his massive hands. It's not that simple, Kryn cut in. The Empire doesn't take humiliation lightly. They'll send fleets, entire armies, to hunt us down. They'll have to find us first, Ethan replied. And we've got more than a head start. Tarlik adjusted the pod's trajectory, its nervous energy returning now that the immediate danger had passed. We need to hide, regroup, and figure out what comes next. This pod won't get us far. Its range is limited, and it's broadcasting an emergency signal. They'll pick it up sooner or later. Ethan nodded, already considering their options. We need to land somewhere remote, strip this thing for parts, and find a way to contact the Resistance. The Resistance? Kryn's voice was skeptical. You mean your human rebellion? Against the Empire? That's suicide. Maybe, Ethan admitted, but it's better than doing nothing. Today, we proved they're not invincible. We took their strongest prison and turned it into dust. If that doesn't send a message, I don't know what will. The others exchanged glances. They had followed Ethan this far, and while doubt lingered in their eyes, there was also something else, respect. He had accomplished the impossible, and they knew it. As Tarlik prepared to enter a nearby star system, a faint beep echoed through the pod. It was the comm system, picking up a transmission. Ethan moved to the console, his brow furrowing as he activated it. The message was brief, distorted by static but unmistakable in its intent. To the one who escaped Tarvos, you're not alone. Others are rising. Contact us. Ethan stared at the display, a slow grin spreading across his face. The Galactic Empire had underestimated him, underestimated humanity. But now, they had a galaxy-wide problem. We're just getting started, he said, turning to the team. And this time, it's not just about survival. It's about taking the fight to them. The pod accelerated toward the distant stars, carrying with it the first spark of rebellion that the galaxy had seen in decades.